Pride in Surrey is all about celebrating, educating and connecting the LGBTQ community and allies. And one group of individuals that is most definitely underrepresented, and in fact many prides shy away from including them in Pride, even though that they were there right at the beginning in Stonewall. It's those that are, well, kink and fetish. We've got somebody now that's going to be joining us. And this individual has, well, come up with a fantastic idea, and it's called Animagi CIC. But we're going to go over to this individual, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what the organisation does, and then we're going to obviously talk about why it's so important that people understand kink and fetish, and the link potentially that it has to World AIDS Day. So, without further ado, welcoming to the show is Joshua Bastow, otherwise known as Thumper, the chairperson of Animagi CIC. My gosh, that was a mouthful of an introduction.
I know.
Welcome to the show. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, that's why everyone calls me Thumper. It's like so much to say my full title. Just wait until I get like a PhD or something. It'd be like doctor, and then it'll be even longer. And have all those little words they have at the end of the name. It'll just get longer. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, MBEWOOF.
Yeah, we'll get there one day.
Oh, well, those joining us today, I'm Stephen, the co-chair and founder of Pride in Surrey, now known as Surrey LGBTQ Pride CIC, and I define as he, him, his. And joining me, as I say, is Thumper. Over to you.
So I'm Thumper. My pronouns are they, them. I identify as genderqueer. As much as I don't look at the moment, I look quite masculine, but yeah, I do. I'm sort of non-binary, so I do also sway on the spectrum. So I would wear something more feminine, and I do more gender fluid, genderqueer, but I don't like putting labels on it. But anyway, I am the chairperson and also sort of founder of Animagi CIC. We originally started, officially founded in May this year during lockdown, from actually starting off from an amazing event that we did in March. So we started an event in March called Pile of Pets, where we had nice educational area, we had a play area for people to interact and do pet play. So pet play is a form of animal role play where people act and role play as an animal. It's not bestiality, it's just literally someone acting as an animal. Had that play around, little area, all safe for work, educational, showed a lot of different groups, and we realised that this was something that we could bring outside of our little event, and we should really be bringing this to a wider reach. We should be bringing it to prides, we should be bringing it to other events, we should be doing more events. So we founded Animagi CIC to try and raise a bit more awareness and build probably more out of our education.
I mean, obviously, it's so important that we recognise every individual as part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I alluded to it just in the introduction there. Right at the beginning, there were people in leather. There were people that were kink, fetish play, you know, but they were there at Pride, the very first Pride. So why is it now that all of a sudden there is this kind of shy away from talking about kink and fetish? What is it that's come out of the woodwork that potentially people are offended by, or is it that they just genuinely don't understand?
So I think I'll go back to maybe from where it started. So if we go back to Stonewall, there's a story that I always tell from one of my good friends who's a bootblacker. So bootblackers are generally someone who looks after someone's leather, generally boots, and generally they get a lot of the stories. So they know a lot of the history, because if you're polishing someone's boots, you're hearing them talk and they like to talk to you. So you learn people's stories, and it's not just an amazing kink fetish, it's also very good educationally, and they've got a lot of good stories that I could go on for days about. But anyway, focusing on this story is that first Stonewall riots happened 1969. We had, obviously, the LGBT community had enough, as people say, and the riots started. One of the stories that I got told about the leather community in general was that there were obviously people being handcuffed, and someone got out of the police van and ran around in handcuffs trying to find someone to get a key. Anyway, bumped into these group of leather men and went, oi, 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 do you have a key? And they went, yeah, of course we do. And just got a key, because obviously they've used handcuffs when they're whipped together and when they're in their personal time, and they carried it around with them, unlocked the handcuffs, and they ran away. Obviously that probably doesn't happen now because it's a bit more criminal offence, but at a time where this homosexual, as I guess, was arrested for being at a venue, a leather man just came and went and unlocked their handcuffs. So it's like, we've been there. It's been there since the start.
You've only got to look at the parade pictures right at the beginning to see that there were people in leathers, there were people in chaps. You know, this kind of Tom of Finland kind of look.
My book somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know where it is.
and that was present at Stonewall all those years ago. Obviously, Animagi is set up really to educate and kind of try and break down those barriers between the LGBT community and the divide that's there with obviously kink and fetish. But it's also there to educate people that are allies to the LGBT community and people in the general public as well. So tell us about that. What is the mission statement of Animagi CIC?
So obviously, kink fetish is universal. You as much as I talk mainly about LGBTQ plus, because I am LGBTQ plus, and that's where my dedication goes to. And there's a lot of problems with people being LGBTQ plus, even today. Like, it's been so many years and we still have problems with someone being different to us, and it stuns me. But kink fetish is universal. There is a I don't like saying it. There's a straight kink and fetish community. I don't like saying it because we are one community. We shouldn't say that we're a straight community and say there's a kink LGBTQ plus. We're one community. Everyone interacts and respects everyone equally, I think, in fetish community. But what we're trying to do is trying to educate everyone and go, look, sometimes it can seem scary. Like, I think that might be why some pride scare away from it, even though kink fetish is everywhere. Everyone is it can be a part of it. People are probably a part of it and they don't even know about it. And the thing is, everyone scares away with it because what they see is someone like this, full leather gear, walking down the street, generally quite butch men. Not always. There's leather dykes, there's leather queers, but generally they see this big authoritative figure, and people shy away from it. They go, oh, that's scary, or they'll see someone in chaps and go, oh, that's not appropriate. And it's like, well, okay, if you strip back what it is, like, what is kink fetish? Kink fetish is the ability to explore someone's own likes and dislikes. So I would say that kink fetish has actually allowed me to become who I am, because if I didn't have kink fetish, I wouldn't have broken down the barriers within me to be able to express myself in a way that I would be today. And you've got to think about, and everyone goes, oh, it's sexual. Kink fetish is sexual. It's sexual. You just want to have sex with each other. And I'm like, I can tell you many occasions, if I'm allowed to say that, and many occasions where I haven't had sex. I've been tied up. I have had different occasions where I have done certain activities and there has been no sexual intercourse. And this is probably a topic we'll talk about later when we come to World AIDS Day, but no, it's about gratification. There's a difference between there's sexual gratification, but there's also other types of gratification. You get gratification from a cuddle. You have a cuddle, you get happiness. You get gratification from getting a good test score. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's different types of gratification. People got to understand that kink fetish isn't all sexual gratification. It can be quite rewarding gratification. Sometimes you get different types of gratification. It's how you feel. Like, it's getting your body going, it's getting adrenaline's going, it's getting all different hormones going without actually having sexual intercourse. And it's trying to educate that and trying to also show link back, going like showing that kink fetish in the LGBTQ plus community been there from the start. It's going like, look, these are the real stories. These are stories that have been passed down. Like people will try and joke around and try and shun us and try and make false stories to try and make us seem villainous or stupid sometimes. But actually, we've got some really interesting stories. We've got some really interesting educational pieces. We've got, I'd say, the kink fetish community have a great understanding of consent, great understanding of safety, and it's something that can be talked about. If people let the conversations happen, it's going to better everyone. So why not let the conversations happen?
Well, you touched upon it there. Obviously, yesterday was the International Day of Consent. Pardon me. And it's so important that within the kink and fetish community, you have a better understanding because of some of the activities that you potentially take part in. But again, going back to what you said, it's not always sexual. And what this has done is it has allowed you to be yourself. And actually, if you suppress that, and if you weren't able to be yourself, the detriment on your health long term potentially could have been that of mental health and problems down the line because you're not able to be yourself. So I have the utmost respect for people who have the ability to be themselves and explore things that potentially would give them that gratification, because actually that is getting them through and getting them to come to a realization as to what they like and what they dislike and what's wrong with that actually.
Yeah.
And as a pride organizer, we got criticized for allowing pups to walk in a parade. Now, I don't see any problem with that. A lot of the community don't see any problem with that. But people's fear is that a child is going to see a pup, they're going to link it to sex, and that's it. But actually, the child probably doesn't even know what sex is. No. What on earth are you going on about? And of course, that's what really kind of boils my blood, is that a lot of pride organisers, unfortunately, listen to that. They're so scared of the criticism from the general public that actually they won't stick by the very people that were part of the very foundation of the pride movement back in Stonewall.
Yeah, I've had two. So I've recently posted quite a personal story on my Twitter. I said, posting about events and venues, saying we've got to take care of LGBTQ plus venues. And I was saying, I would be shut in. I would be in my house. I would not be interacting with anyone if I wouldn't have found the venues and I wouldn't have found these kink and fetish events. I would be shut in. I wouldn't socialise. It has actually allowed me to go out and socialise and meet my chosen family. I'd say and if I wouldn't have had that, then I would be in. I'd had poor mental health. I'd be shut in pretty much. I also had another discussion with one of my friends who's neurodiverse. She's an amazing pup, and unfortunately, loud noises and big events and big spaces and a lot of people can really set her off, and she can't handle her own emotions. But she puts the hood on, she puts the pup hood on, and she's fine. She can relax. She can start to get into the pride. She can start doing stuff. She can go and interact. So by saying that someone can't wear something, that's all we're saying is someone wearing something. They're not doing anything. They're just wearing something. By saying you can't wear your hood or you can't wear your leather or you can't do this, it's pretty much saying you can't come to pride. Because for some people, wearing this gives them so much confidence, or gives them the ability to actually get out of the house and actually go to these events. So it does sadden me when people say, oh, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, because I'm like, well, then you're just telling people that they can't come to pride. Pride is an open space. How can you tell people not to come to pride?
I think it's that, again, it's that non-education piece. And of course, that's what Animagi is trying to do, is obviously break down the barriers and create that educational piece that hasn't been there for quite some time. How can people make it easier? What can people do potentially that understand and are listening to this now and going, yeah, do you know what, I get it? How can those people make a difference?
So I think people can make a difference in quite a few ways. If you're ever unsure, you go and you're looking at someone. Like I've had many people stare me up and down, and I'm like, oh, I must be looking good. But sometimes it is like they're staring at me up and down because they're like, what the hell are you wearing? And just come up to me and go, what the hell are you wearing? Like, just ask me. Just go, why the hell are you wearing? Why are you wearing this? And most people will happily talk to you about this. If there's people that understand this, they understand leather, they understand the kink and fetish community, then just support. All you got to do is go, if you hear a conversation that you think is inappropriate, that is kink shaming, or that is what we call doxing. So you know someone's real name. So I use the name Thumper. I happily use my full name now. I don't like my full name because of gender identity as well, very complicated. But many people have a name just to ensure that the work won't kick them out for no reason. So, but if you actually then say their real name, outing them, you out them in a space, then that's really detrimental to their career and also to their life. You wouldn't do that to a normal LGBTQ plus person. You would never out an LGBTQ plus person. So don't out someone who's in kink fetish. Don't dox them. So don't dox. If you hear kink shaming, just call it out. Just say, I don't think that's appropriate. Don't think you should be saying that. And just support. If even like I even said to some of my friends who aren't in the kink fetish community, I understood it though. Come to my event. Come to my event on March sometime. I've forgotten what the date was, but come to my event and just come and have a look. Listen to some of the chats. Just come in and listen, because even though it might not be exactly your cup of tea, it might not be exactly down what you're looking for, there'll be little snippets of things that you will hear that will really help. We talked about consent earlier. Consent isn't just sexual. And also consent, and for any sexual orientation, consent is pretty much the same. So if you think about that, I have to ask consent before I hug someone, or I have to give some indication of consent for allowing someone to hug me. That's not sexual. We have to undergo consent in our daily life all the time. So even if you're asexual, you still have to understand consent. If you're any sexual orientation, if you have sex with male, female, non-binary, you still got to understand what consent is, so you can still come and chat, come and listen to the talks, come and listen to what we're talking about. And there's a lot of asexual people in kink fetish, so you can always come and find out. And yeah, here's one of our thanks, Stephen. Here's one of our sites that we're currently making, which tries to help educate people. And if you're ever stuck, definitely recommend going to here. We keep this as safe for work as possible. So we try to ensure that this isn't, you won't see any what we call non-safe work. So no nudity, nothing like that. It will all strictly try to keep within educational guidelines.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's really important that people understand it, because, you know, there are so many more flags and things being flown at prides, and actually when you don't know what it is, it's kind of, sometimes it's like, oh gosh, what does that mean? Yes, you can go up and obviously ask, but a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
So go along and check out lambda, that's LAMBDA _plus.co.uk, and well, I take it you're going to be updating this with lots of different educational pieces as and when.
Yeah, we've got a big aim in the next few months coming through. We've got some history pieces hopefully coming through. We've got some symbols pieces. If you click on the, this is all about consent, talking about safety, talk about the traffic light system, which is a really interesting way to engage with the person you're playing with. So that you're talking about levels. So you're not just talking about yes, no. You're talking about yes, actually, can you, the next level, can you actually slow down here? I'm getting quite near to a point where I'm not comfortable. And then a no. So it's sort of like the yes, no. So it's like trying to gauge how you're feeling, because a lot of people,
You checking in, so you're basically
yeah,
saying how you feeling, red, green.
and it's ensuring that consent is always there, because consent, you've got to ensure consent's there all the time. And how do you do that? If you say, oh, can I do this? They say yes, and then you do it, and then halfway through they don't want to do it. How do you know? Yes, they can communicate that, but sometimes people feel a bit stuck to communicate that. But if you're checking in with them, that really helps that person to communicate how they feel, and it stops a really disastrous and dangerous thing from happening, or even illegal. You've got to be very careful, and you've got to be understanding what's going on. Here we've got just a little bit about us and what kink fetish is. And also talking a bit about symbols that we want to do a bit more. So we base quite a lot of our stuff off historical symbols. So we've got the lambda symbol, that is the symbol for gay liberation, pink triangle, which was used in World War II to brand homosexuals and other types of men. You've got the double female, you've got the double male, you've got the plus, and we've got the old Gilbert Baker flag. So it's just trying to incorporate a bit of history. And if you go to flagging, it's a bit weird. I've never tried to direct someone from the website. This is sort of, it's a bit bright. This is what we're trying to sort of do. So if you have a look, we're trying to do our flags. We're trying to then go into a bit about flagging. So talking about what flagging means and how that's accomplished. So some people used to use bandanas to try and communicate what they were interested in.
There was a
But
piercing
also,
as well, wasn't there, if you had a piercing in a certain ear? Is that right?
there's different piercings, there's tattoos, there's nail polish.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, nail polish. Also, we probably do it every day. We're all wearing a red ribbon at the moment, aren't we? So we're all flagging that we support World AIDS Day. So just little things that you wouldn't really think about, and you actually go, oh, I'm actually trying to convey a message. So we're just trying to talk about how historically and presently we convey messages through what we wear and what we do.
How interesting. How many kinks and fetishes are there? Because there does seem to be so many.
I always say, if you can think about it, there's one. If you can think of it, it's probably there. Obviously, I do always say there are certain kink and fetishes that aren't a part of our community. So kink and fetish can be quite a broad topic, and definitions of kink and fetish can be quite broad. But the fetishization of people is not allowed. You do not fetishize anyone in our community. That is not part of kink and fetish. That is either racism or transphobia. You cannot fetishize someone for who they are. That is totally wrong. That you're not supporting them. You're not. People say, "Oh, I'm supporting them because I like them and I fetish them," and you like they're sort of fetishizing them, and I'm like, you're not supporting them. That is totally against support. That is not support. So fetishization is not included.
Likewise, there are other things that are very illegal potentially. Yes. Again, you saying that about people, again, that links to that, and we won't go into detail, but
no.
But you know, it's really important that people do understand that you are a significant part of the community, and the main reason, obviously, we're here today is World AIDS Day.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Obviously, kink fetish, World AIDS Day. How do we link it all together, and what is ultimately the impact? Now, my view, right, and this is because I genuinely am still learning. You've got the likes of Freddie Mercury, leather, kink fetish. You know, he was in the limelight. Boom, that's a link there. That's my view. But of course, there's so many other stories that you hear. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so Freddie Mercury is a great icon. We recently publicised something about him because he unfortunately died so many years ago last week. And he was he's a great icon. He pushed gender boundaries. He raised awareness on leather really as well. He showed off the gay community, the LGBTQ plus community, and he also raised awareness on HIV and AIDS, which is an important issue even today. I think the last year's report, 900 people in the UK still died of HIV and AIDS last year, which is too many. So he was a great icon, but there's so much. If you actually strip it back and go, there's so much more. Leather community especially, because that's been one of the biggest communities of kink and fetish that's been around for ages, since about probably the 1950s, by when Tom Finland started drawing a lot of his artwork that influenced the leather scene. It really blew off and people started wearing leather quite often. But the leather community, and also quite the drag community as well, seek to try and do fundraisers to try and support the community, because a lot of their friends were unfortunately dying of this horrible disease. So the kink and fetish community have been big fundraisers for charities throughout years, since probably the 80s, 70s. They've also been educators. Like I said, kink and fetish people are very good on consent, but also at a time where LGBTQ plus education, sexual education wasn't occurring, people stepped in, the leather community stepped in and went, hey, look, this, you need to be careful with this, you need to be careful with that, you need to do this. Just educating on what needs to happen and how to be safe. Another thing that occurred is that kink and fetish has got, like I said, it's not all about sexual intercourse. So how, at a time when they eventually realised that it was transmitted through sexual intercourse, apart from protection, obviously, that we know and many people use and should use more, what else can you do? What can you do to gain gratification in quite an intimate way without having intercourse? What about kink and fetish? What about having an intimate time with each other without having intercourse and both getting gratification out of it? So there are quite a few links that I've only briefly gone over them, but there's quite a few.
But no, it's, you're quite right, and just touching upon that point there, a relationship isn't just about sex.
No.
And actually, what kink and fetish is it allows couples to explore each other. It creates those intimate moments. There's a lot more to it, and again, pretty sure that it's not just the LGBTQ plus community that have these things. Exactly, we know that. So don't shy away from it. And of course, if you ever are curious and kind of don't necessarily understand something, check out websites like Animagi and like Lambda, because the information will be there. Obviously, go to sources that are valid and reputable. That's one thing I would say, because there are a number of sites out there that try and discredit the community. How do people watch out for that?
So I think trying to just listen. There's been big issues within the recently within the trans community. People publishing materials which are detrimental to the trans community, but just listen to us. Like you listen to trans community, listen to trans community. If they say that this is not reputable source and this is not valid, this is not actually what happens, then don't use it. Just listen. We retweet quite a few people. We try to. Recon have started a lovely podcast, some podcasts and some chats, and they've done a few some written posts. There's also the Bishops Institute in London. The Bishops Institute in London have a leather fetish archive, I believe, which also goes through history, and they've got some educational pieces there. So just try and look out, and just you'll start to learn what's reputable, not reputable, and just ask if you ever are concerned and you want to message out and go, oh, Thumper, I've seen this source. Would you agree with this? That's even within the community we disagree. What's the Safe Word is a lovely podcast. We've started a podcast called The Weekly Woof. There's loads of stuff on YouTube. Just have a look on YouTube. What's the Safe Word? I will swear by. They are a lovely a gay sort of couple, a dom and sub couple, and they talk about the whole of kink, the kink and fetish community, and also the current Mr. Friendly. Don't know if people know about this, but Mr. Friendly is a title in America which raises awareness for HIV-free stigma. So tries to break down stigma of people with HIV, so you equals you. And he's currently the advocate for Mr. Friendly America. So he's also a great advocate for World AIDS Day. But yeah, there's many sources out there. Just try and look, listen, message us if you've got a problem.
Amazing. No, that's absolutely fantastic. It's really important that you do reach out. I was just showing you there the Twitter, twitter.com/Animagi CIC. Go and check that out. Obviously, all the website and things will be tweeting out as well. Obviously, want to leave you then with a kind of closing statement, I suppose, from yourself on World AIDS Day, Thumper. Obviously, it is a day to reflect, but in true Pride in Surrey style, we like to celebrate, educate and connect individuals. And that's why I thought it was really important that we had you on the show and in the lineup of World AIDS Day, because it is really, really important that people take a moment out to understand something that potentially they didn't understand before. And rather than jump into a conclusion, actually listen to it, because making assumptions, you really do not want to make an arse out of you and me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So over to you then with your closing piece for World AIDS Day.
Oh, I didn't even know I had to do a closing piece. Anyway, so kink and fetish community is an important part of the LGBTQ plus community and more. We're here to support, we're here to educate, and we're here to help on consent and safe sex practices. What we'll say is that you equals you, undetectable, untransmittable. Look at PrEP. If you are going to be in risky situations, look at PrEP. It's now on the NHS. Go and look at your local STI clinics. Go and look at Dean Street. They all support it. Go and have a look. Get on PrEP. And the other thing is that HIV and AIDS does not discriminate. So are you.
Thank you. Really do appreciate you joining us on today's show. Everybody, please do go and check out animagi.co.uk. And all the information also can be found on Twitter, twitter.com/Animagi CIC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.